Then we'll know whose side they're really on. And when we take it to the streets of our city,
until showtime,
media to cover our action. And when we vote, we're gonna dominate the coming elections. Make the Rockefellers wonder what happened. And we said we ain't gonna fight for the new world order. And we ain't gonna train no UN soldiers. And we ain't gonna give the enemy no more aid nor quarter. 'Cause we ain't gonna fight for the new world order. God bless the Republic. Through faith we cannot fail. Death to the new world order, and we shall prevail.
All right, I can't hear you.
Your show will go live in 5 seconds.
Here we go.
4, 3, 2, 1. Blog Talk Radio.
Voices on the web can take you.
He took an oath to defend the Constitution of the United States of America. By some, he's been called controversial.
I'll keep my freedom, I'll keep my guns, try to keep my money and my religion too.
Now, keep in mind that some of my guests have been approached by Homeland Security or FBI saying, why are you going on the Clay Douglas show?
My message to those guys, if they're listening this morning, is go get a cup of coffee. Maybe you'll learn something.
We both took the same oath, to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. I don't recall there being an expiration date on that.
I'm gonna keep my big BA, keep my friends the same, keep the government out of my business, and y'all can keep the change.
He is the free American, Clay Douglas.
We know what we need, we know who to blame.
Catch the Free American Hour, weekdays at 7 a.m. Pacific, 10 a.m. Eastern.
I'll keep the USA and y'all can keep the change.
For the podcast and more details, visit www.freeamerican.com or catch the podcast by phone by calling 832-999-8621.
History.
All right.
The root of that prosperity.
I was trying to get on Truth Radio, and all I get is more commercials. So this is 802, Richard. 802. We're trying to get on one of our stations, and I've got some blathering going on in the background here. I'll try it one more time. My guest today, welcome to the Free American. Nope. All right, we won't be doing Truth Radio anymore. All right. Allan David. Hello, Allan David. How are you, sir?
I'm fine. Hello?
Yes, sir. We can hear you. We can hear you here, and we're recording everywhere except Truth Radio, so I don't know what the hell happened to that. But, at any rate, yeah, Crusade was dead, too. I got Crusade up today, Uncle. And, David, you're with the North American Historical Law Society. Is that something that you started?
Yeah, it's a Nevada nonprofit corporation I started quite a while ago, years ago. And it's a charitable and educational nonprofit. And that's all it's there for. I mean, it's non-operative. It doesn't do business or anything. It's basically there in case someone wants to donate money, or we ever do conferences, and we can do it in the name of the nonprofit. They can't accuse us of making a profit. Just trying to pass the word out about what we've discovered in research, because as you're probably aware of, there's a lot of people that go to conferences to basically torpedo it.
Yeah, they do that. That's one of the things they do is they'll come on the show. The trolls, like Mr. T down here, they come on the chat rooms. They do anything they can to disrupt, and they've done it in meetings. We had a meeting here called the Tucson Breakfast Club. I used to speak there, and suddenly they, somebody came in and disrupted the whole thing. Tried to move it somewhere, tried to divide and conquer. That's what they do. And what they're doing too is with the mortgages and everything else and our jobs. This is basically divide and conquer. They don't want us understanding the power we have to stand up to them, do they?
Order from chaos, divide and conquer, diversion, distraction, misdirection. Yeah, that's what they do all the time. Agent provocateur.
Now, you're in California. I mean, I would probably be there with you if they hadn't if they'd ever repealed their helmet laws. But
yeah, it's another way to make some money. Helmet laws. I mean, no one wants to wear a helmet. I mean. So they got some money coming if you don't wear your helmet, right? Or they gonna throw you in jail.
Well, let me touch on that. One of my little things here is I think we ought to legalize pot, decriminalize it, let anybody grow anything they want. If you want to grow poppies in your front yard, grow them. If you want to grow grass in your backyard, let them. If we abolished all the laws against victimless crimes, we could save billions of dollars on police enforcement. We could save billions of dollars on the illegal aliens. I wrote books about this 40 years ago that'll be coming out this next year. But the Ayn Rand had it correct, I think. The government has no control over the honest citizens, so they have to make criminals out of us.
Yeah, that's on my website. Did you see that on my website?
Oh, look. Tell me about your stance on that. Now, I've had Lewis Ewing on my show a number of times, and he said there ain't any law against having a controlled substance.
Well, what it is marijuana is a natural growing herb. It's not a controlled substance or anything. Everyone has the right under the Bill of Rights, inalienable, inherent, natural right. That isn't given by man, it's by God or the creator, the source of everything. Those things can't be taken away by legislative acts. So it's a misnomer to think that there's such a thing, regarding an herb or a plant as a law, forbidding it because it's a controlled substance. It's nonsense. Yeah, and if you try to legalize it, then you're going to be, saying, yeah, it is a crime. Please get us off the hook here. In other words, you're going to be legitimizing their right to control, regulate your use of an herb, which you already have an inalienable right without man and without government. So you're defeating your own purpose.
Well, the whole thing. I mean, they basically made alcohol illegal. That was our first prohibition. And it didn't stop anybody from drinking. It certainly, and the laws against marijuana or drugs certainly hasn't been exactly successful in stopping it, because hell, the CIA, the Mossad are bringing the drugs in. They've got the mechanism. They got the planes. They got the Air Force. They're the ones that are bringing it in, so they can sell it to you, so they can arrest you for it and put you in jail.
Well, yeah, if you read a book called Dope Inc., there's a book, it's rather famous. I think it was written in the 60s, late 60s, early 70s, maybe.
Wasn't that Lyndon LaRouche? Was that Lyndon LaRouche or...
Well, it's called... Yeah, well, it was his organization that funded it, but he didn't write the book. It was a woman or something. But yeah, it was connected to LaRouche. But, it goes through all the banking networks in the world that launder the money for the huge drug running and drug operations that have gone on for centuries, and starting from opium, and there's tea, and then there was slavery, all those trades, so-called, which today they try to say is illicit, of course, But the thing is, they're still doing it, and the reason why they're passing all these laws is because they're eliminating the competition. When they pass all these drug laws, the royal families, the royal bloodlines all over the world are the ones that are, with the help of the CIA and all that, are the ones that are controlling the drug trade. And if you aren't one of theirs, of course they want a law to put you in prison because you're interfering with their monopoly. And that's really what's going on. It's to control the competition.
Yeah, back in the 60s, they offered me a position with their company, and I said no, I don't want to, I don't want to do business with you. I know people that grow pot. I know I can get anything I want. Why would I do business with you? Well, if you don't, they'll put you in prison. So they do eliminate the competition that way. We sent in the SEAL teams to take out the Median cartel, the cocaine cartels in Colombia, and we didn't stop any cocaine, we just changed handlers. The banks took it over, the Cali cartel took it over.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of research that says the CIA, created both those cartels. They created the drug wars, they set up the two, Cali and the other cartel, to fight each other, divide and conquer, order from chaos. So they have an excuse for a war on drugs, they set it all up in another country, and they declare the emergency of the war on drugs, through executive emergency war powers. They got a whole list of these wars: war on terror, war on crime, war on drugs, war on poverty. They got a war on everything on the domestic side that could be going on. So now they have authority under this so-called, it's pseudo-authority. It's not under law, but it's under the emergency executive war powers granted to the president in 1933. Now they have this so-called authority to wage a war on the domestic side inside the country, in the continental U.S., which they never had under the Constitution. And the U.S. Supreme Court cases tell you point blank that there is no authority given to the government to violate the Constitution in the name of an emergency, but yet that doesn't stop them from doing it. They just say there's an emergency here, war on drugs, and therefore we're going to throw you all in prison for growing pot in your backyard.
And the war on terror is another one. I've said that the war on terror is a war against anyone, anywhere that doesn't want to go along with one world banking, one world government. If you don't want to go along with that, then you are a terrorist. And they have already. I warned people 10 years ago. I filmed the first Homeland Security meeting. And Colonel John Brinkerhoff was lecturing law enforcement and telling us how we were going to need 400,000 troops to control the American people in case of an emergency or a single outbreak of smallpox in a major metropolitan area, because some of them just won't follow orders. So and now he also warned that we were going to be in for a long war, a war that might go longer than the Cold War, and that the enemy we were facing was weak. They didn't have helicopters, they didn't have tanks, they didn't have their planes, so they would use unconventional methods. He was talking about us. He was talking about the American people. And they asked him, are you talking about the National Guard? You bringing in the National Guard? No, they're too expensive. Besides, they're going to be in Afghanistan or Iraq or Iran or someplace like that. So no, we need a cheap source of well-armed, well-trained, organized, disciplined troops. I mean, this is basically they're declaring war, and now on the mainstream TV, you got the Congress going, yeah, the war is going to be fought here. This is a war fought on our land. They're confirming everything that they told us 10 years ago. Well,
they're setting everything up for, all kinds of false flags. They always have all these contingencies, they have, if you go do some research, some people have, like there's a guy, Dr. Bill Deagle, he's worked in the underground bases, and he tells you they have all these models that they work out on these supercomputers, possible futures, and all these contingencies, possible events and things they can run, black operations. So they always have a number of contingency operations, and and it can be always changing, so what is the next false flag operation? You had the 9/11 thing. Before that, you had Waco, you had Ruby Ridge, you had you have Pearl Harbor. You just got a whole list. Tonkin Gulf, incident. You have all of these ongoing incidents, and you research and you find out that all the wars since the Revolutionary War of 1776 have been funded both sides have been funded by the bankers. So what you got is a chess game going on, and you know, they're just making these moves behind the scenes, looking for some suckers to, you know, bite down on this hook that they're going to bait for us and try to start something, you know. And that's the way it's been for now a long time. Most people are savvy to it by now. They know this whole thing is a big fake put on.
I've said that the whole 9/11 thing, George Bush made me look sick as a conspiracy theorist. He wants you to believe a bunch of Arabs in a cave in Afghanistan made the U.S. Air Force stand down. And, you know, that kind of puts my estimation that this was done by the Mossad and CIA in a joint succession to create some more wars. And actually they're bringing about a war that was predicted or described 150 years ago by Confederate War General Albert Pike.
Pike. Yeah, Pike. Yeah, there's a book called Pawns in the Game, and I think it's by, what's his name? Guy, I forget, that's his middle name. Anyway, Pawns in the Game, you know, quotes Pike. They say he wrote a letter to Mazzini, talking about how they're going to, you know, use all these groups to, under dialectical manipulation, to start World War III. And that, according to, you know, the author of that book, that letter was actually exposed after World War I, I guess. And it was put up in the on display in the British Museum. And so, and I think it was probably leaked to different governments, different governing bodies of different countries. And that's what prevented World War III from happening all up until now. But now they're looking for alternative ways to start World War III, you know. There's been leaks since like last year, or 2 years ago, 2010, that there was a secret meeting in Ireland where the Bilderbergers were calling for an attack on Iran by you know, Israel, and they had plans to pull China or Russia into it, and, you know, nuclear. They want to set off nuclear war, start World War III. Well, that's ongoing in Israel in the news. You know, if you get online, there's hundreds of articles the last few years talking about Israel is just, you know, sword rattling. They're just pushing and pushing for an attack on Iran to set this whole thing up. And you know, we're real close to it. We've got ships in the Gulf over there. We got just back and forth, you know, tit for tat. You know, now Iran's they're blocking oil for various countries. It's going to cause our price of gas to go up to $6. So they're just pushing the envelope here.
They've also said Iran has put out a public notice that if they feel they're threatened, they can they will attack. They will start the war. They're saying they'll start the war.
Yeah. Preemptive, yeah. That's what George Bush had said when he was the president. This last George Bush, before this president here, he had stated the new policy after 9/11 was a preemptive attack. Now Iran has done the same thing. They said, now we're going to do it. If you threaten us, we're going to hit you with a preemptive attack. So it's tit for tat. They're coming back and copying George Bush's policy. So now what do you have? You have a possibility of either country doing a preemptive strike and just setting this thing off. You know, they've pushed it to the edge.
Yes, they have. And this is all engineered, folks. They want a war. They want a war because, well, let's see, who makes all those weapons? You know, I'm still I still like to follow the money. Who created all of these nuclear weapons and sold them to the United States and Russia and Israel? I think they forgot Iran there, but.
Well, I did a research to find out how many countries actually have nuclear weapons, and there's like 12 or 13 now. There's at least 13, I think, and they only talk about the five nuclear powers, the original five, and the original 5 nuclear powers are the 5 of the Security Council of the UN, coincidentally. And then I was doing some research, and I found in a book that's called World Security, all the modern wars, both sides of every modern war has been provided weapons and armaments by the same 5. There's an inner agreement between them to regulate and control the arms trade, and you know, it's really a rigged game, you know.
Let's see, we got there in the news here. Several members of Congress received mail threatening a biological attack and containing a suspicious powder later to be found to be harmless. And they warned law enforcement officials that more letters could be on the way. Suspicious mail alert at in the Senate now. So they're really trying to destabilize us. They're trying to and let me go back now. When George Bush walked out here, he handed $2 trillion to the bankers. Now these are these bankers that this was handed to Goldman Sachs. We're talking about giving money to the bankers that are charging us interest on nothing here. Now this whole an article just came out about MERS, and I know that you were working with Star on trying to get her property back. Give me an update on that. Tell me about MERS, because the story that I sent you and Star said that some judge had ruled against MERS, and so we might be able to profit. But from the interview that I had with Star yesterday, it didn't seem like the courts were being very helpful to you at all. Tell me.
No, they never are. It's, you know, as anybody who's had experience in courts, the courts are as corrupt as anything else in the government. It's a fixed and rigged game. Most of my successes have been on appeal, and that's where we have an appeal on that right now. And but before we did that, what I did was I set up a one legal issue, one question of law case with 7 plaintiffs, and this was regarding 5 unlawful detainer actions in California, Kern County. And I had been researching this for the previous 3 years, and we had raised it in our original lawsuits, and they had never come back with anything, no cases, no court rulings on the issue. And so now it's going to go up to the 5th District Court of Appeal. There's 2 or 3 appeals on the same thing, on this one question of law. There's never been any court ruling on it. There's no published case law. It's an issue of first impression, which will set precedent case law in California. And it's all, what it's about is, in your deeds of trust, when you get a mortgage, there's a high number of these, not all of them, but a high number of them, who have this provision in paragraph 24. And what that says, you can check, anybody who has a mortgage out there can check to see if you have a reservation, paragraph 24, that reserves the right to substitute the trustee to the lender. And I'm gonna quote you what it says in Article 24. Quote, 24, lender at its option may from time to time appoint a successor trustee to any trustee appointed hereunder by an instrument executed and acknowledged by lender and recorded in the office of the recorder of the county in which the property is located. And then at the end of this provision, it says, quote, this procedure for substitution of trustees shall govern to the exclusion of all other provisions for substitution. That's the key language right there. Because what that means under contract law, and the courts have ruled that deeds of trust are to be strictly construed under the rules of contract law, is because they are contracts. And that is an exclusive provision stating that there isn't anybody named in the deed of trust that can issue a substitution of trustee except the lender, the named lender, and the deeds of trust names who the lender is, not MERS. MERS is a beneficiary, alleged, and by nominee. And what you find in 100% of the cases that we found so far in these things, before they foreclose on you and sell your home in a mortgage, what they do is they issue what's called a substitution of trustee. And that's a document they record in the county recorder's office. And in that document, it's usually MERS or a beneficiary. About 90%, 99% of the time it's MERS who does it. And they state that they have, they want to substitute, they just have a desire to substitute the trustee. They don't give a cause or a reason, or even a legal reason. They just say, the beneficiary or the lender desiring to substitute the trustee, MERS hereby, beneficiary hereby substitutes XYZ corporation or whatever. for the named trustee, and then they sign off on it. It's like one-page document, and they record it in the recorder's office. Well, when you go research, what you're going to find out is they don't even have any authority to do that, because deed of trust is strictly construed, and the language if you have an Article 24 reservation, what that does is void out under the law any action taken by that substituted trustee, because they're not named in the deed of trust. And we have court cases in California that say there is no agreement to sell the house, or no power of sale in the deed of trust other than that which is expressly stated in the deed of trust. So when you go read your deed of trust, there's a named trustee, and that's who has the power of the sale, the named trustee. And if you have that Article 24 reservation, the only one that can change the trustee is the lender. And what we found in numbers of cases is that MERS is doing it, and there is no provision for MERS to do it in the deed of trust. It's only reserved to the lender. So that's I've also found an admission back in 2010 on a website by an attorney who specializes in mortgages. He made a comment or a statement on another woman's attorney's website regarding bankruptcy cases and the power of sale under the trustee MERS. He admitted that there's a glitch in the MERS deeds of trust under paragraph 24, and he admitted that this language right here gives them a serious problem and voids it out. And so he suggested that MERS changes their contract. In other words, stops putting that provision in there, because it's been their policy that MERS does the substitutions when paragraph 24 says the lender, and only the lender has the option, and that it governs to the exclusion of all other provisions. That means there is no other provision allowed for MERS or anybody. So that's what this issue is that we've been talking about, and I've been researching it for like 3 years, down to the last jot and tittle, and I've given these people 2 to 3 years, these court attorneys, various banking institutions who have come in, even attorneys from Washington D.C. for Fannie Mae, to come up with something. And you know what? There isn't anybody who's come up with one case, one court ruling on the issue, much less against it. They've cited a bunch of irrelevant cases that don't address that issue. So it looks to us like this is going to go big time and set precedent case law. We'll see if the Court of Appeal is as corrupt as the trial court. But I have personal experience of getting cases reversed in the 5th DCA in California, so I think we at least have a 50-50 chance of getting it reversed.
Now, the story that I sent you was said United States bankruptcy judge Robert Grossman has ruled that MERS business practices are unlawful. He explicitly acknowledged that this ruling sets a precedent that has far-reaching implications for half of the mortgages in this country. MERS is dead. The banks are in big trouble. All foreclosures should be stopped immediately while the legislative branch comes up with a solution. How about, have you checked that one out?
That's very interesting. That's very interesting because based on that, that's out of New York. But based on that, people in California and other states can check their laws, but I know for a fact in California there is a provision in the Business and Professions Code, for to sue corporations, which of course includes banks, for unlawful business practices, and that would fit right in. Based on that finding, you could take that ruling and then go file a lawsuit in California under the Business and Professions Code against in any case where a bank is doing this with MERS as the beneficiary and the nominee. That would be big. I would guess there's probably like millions of cases where this is possible, and that just might sink their ship right there.